day, perfect students. Civic Education with Knowledge World Academy. Your perfect tutor, Mr. Gilbert CJ. So in this video, we are looking at a new topic, and that is poverty in Zambia. Poverty. So we are going to focus on the introduction of poverty, measuring poverty, and the characteristics of poverty. So let's start with the introduction. What is poverty? So poverty is a condition of not having sufficient resources to meet basic needs of life. What are basic needs? Basic needs are things that human beings cannot do without, cannot survive without. For example, shelter, food, water, and medical care. So these are basic needs of life. Now, if you're not having sufficient resources to meet these basic needs, then that condition is called or is referred to as poverty. So now there are two types of poverty. We have absolute poverty and relative poverty. So what is absolute poverty? From the word absolute, this is a condition of lacking basic needs such as food, shelter, clothes, medical care, etc., etc. If you are lacking the basic needs of life, then that type of poverty is called absolute poverty. Then we also have relative poverty. So relative poverty is a person's way of life which is comparatively below the minimum acceptable standard of living in the society or region. So it's not that this person is lacking the basic needs. No, they have the basic needs. They are able to eat. They have shelter. They have clothes. But we are just talking about the status of these basic needs that they have, the extent to which they are able to satisfy themselves. For example, you have clothes, but they are not clean clothes. Not having clean clothes. Why? You have no money to buy soap so as to wash the clothes. You have shelter, but it's not nice shelter. It's not nice shelter because you do not have money to renovate or to simply build a nice shelter. They can eat, but maybe once a day, or they do not eat healthy food. They do not eat healthy food. So this type of poverty is called relative poverty. They have basic needs, but their way of life is comparatively below the minimum acceptable standard of living in the society. Another example, let's say in Zambia we say basically you should eat 3 times a day, at least breakfast, lunch, and supper. This is the minimum. And here is a family, here is a household which can only manage to eat once a day. If they eat today around 15 hours, they will eat tomorrow around 15 hours, the other day around 15 hours. So that is not absolute poverty, but it is relative poverty because it is below the minimum acceptable standard of living in the society, and that is Zambia in the case that I just gave. I hope you understand the two types of poverty. So having known the two types of poverty, let us now talk about measuring poverty. How can we measure poverty? First of all, poverty is difficult to measure. It's not easy. Now, though it's difficult, there are 3 perspectives that we can use to measure poverty. 3 perspectives. The first one is income perspective. We are trying to see whether this person is poor or not. 3 things that we can use. So the first one is income perspective. A person is poor if his or her income falls below a defined money or metric poverty line, e.g. a person living on $1 per day. So let me take it to our country. Let me give an example. Let's say in Zambia, it's just an example. I'm not saying that's how it is in Zambia. Let's say in Zambia, the minimum income that you must receive as a household per month is 500 kwacha. That's just an example. It's 500 kwacha. Then for you, you are getting a 400 kwacha. So that is below the defined money or metric poverty line. It's below 500, which is acceptable. Have you seen? So it's below 500. So using income perspective, we are going to consider that this person is poor because the money or the income that he or she is getting per month is below the metric poverty line. Then the second perspective is basic needs perspective. When we consider the basic needs. So under this one, a person is poor if his or her requirements for a minimum acceptable fulfillment of human needs are not met. This person is unable to find sufficient resources that can help him or her to satisfy the needs, the basic needs of life. Then this person is poor under basic needs perspective. Then the last one is capability perspective. So a person is poor if he or she lacks certain capabilities to function, such as adequate food, clothing, shelter, and ability to participate in community. Let's say you have not eaten the whole day, 2 days you have not eaten, and then there is a meeting at the local school. You don't have nice clothes to wear. Are you going to attend that meeting? You won't participate because you lack certain capabilities to function. You lack certain capabilities to function. So that is under capability perspective. Great. So now let us look at some of the characteristics of poverty. Characteristics of poverty. First of all, these characteristics are in categories. We have personal and physical status as the first category. Then we have economic status, social status, political participation. Political participation. So let us start with personal and physical status. A person has no food or does not eat well. A person lacks access to education. We're talking about characteristics of poverty. How can you know that this person is poor for sure? This person is poor. So we have said number one, this person has no food or does not eat well. A person lacks access to education. A person lacks access to adequate shelter. A person lacks access to health care. A person has poor clothing. A person has poor clothing. This is poverty. Characteristics under personal and physical status. Then secondly, we have economic status. Lack of money or adequate income, especially in urban areas, because everything is to buy there. You buy tomato 3 kwacha 1. Lack of productive assets such as plows, hoes, oxen, fishing nets, canoes. This is in rural areas now, because there, if you have a plow, you are rich. In the rural area, you are rich. You have a plow, you have cows, you are rich. So if you don't have this in rural areas, you may be considered to be poor as lacking productive assets. Then social status, there is inequality. You won't be considered to be equal with everyone else. Then low self-esteem. These people mostly, they don't value themselves that much. Landlessness, no access to land. No access to land. Then the last one is political participation as a category of characteristics of poverty. Powerlessness when it comes to politics. Lack of political voice. Lack of access to legal institutions, and that is courts of law. Courts of law. So these are the 4 categories of the characteristics of poverty. Please do not confuse them. What have we learned in our video? We have talked about the introduction to poverty. Simply the condition of not having sufficient resources to meet the basic needs of life. Then we also went on to the perspectives that we can use to measure poverty. we learned that we have three perspectives: income perspective, basic needs perspective, and capabilities perspective. And from there, we have also discussed the characteristics of poverty, which can be categorized into personal and physical status, economic status, social status, and political participation. So see you in the next video. We'll take it up from there.